Well, good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great day. Coach Robert Cagle here with National Scouting Report. And boy, have we got some good information for you guys tonight. Some of you may be on Facebook Live watching us. Some of you may be on different platforms watching us this evening, but it's going to be a good one. I got my buddy Brian Hill here. What's up, Coach?
How we doing?
Man, it's another day in paradise, except now we don't have any snow where I am in South Alabama, okay? So it all melted finally.
Yeah, same here. Eastern North Carolina got more than we wanted. It kind of stuck around for a while. So
No, man, that stuff's like a bad cold. It just kept on hanging around, right?
especially in baseball season.
And that's right. We're gearing up. High schools are getting ready. Colleges are already rolling with practice. I mean, it's baseball time, folks. Tonight we're going to talk about. We're really going to talk about how the latest NCAA rules, some of the changes as far as transfer portal stuff, and even the things about roster limitations. There's so much confusion out right now, Coach, and with all this stuff in the world, and there's a lot of misinformation. And we even talked about that earlier before we got on. There's interpretation of rules that are just it's hard to figure out what the deal is. But if you're in the audience tonight, here's what we're going to attempt to do. Okay, we're going to walk through some things that really are important to high school kids. And the truth is, they're going to be important to even some kids that are in junior college too, and even guys that may get in the portal at some point in time. But, Coach, we're going to talk about that. Let me tell y'all, just to bring you up to speed on Coach Brian Hill, okay? So Coach Hill has been around the game for over 15 years as far as coaching. He coached collegiately for 15 years. 13 of those years was at the Division II level. 2 of those years was at the junior college level. For the last decade or so, he's also been a part of the collegiate summer leagues, which are all sanctioned and given approval by the NCAA. So we bring somebody in tonight, coaching you, that has a firsthand experience and with hundreds of friends of yours that are your coaching peers and friends that coach at every level, Division I all the way down to junior college and everything in between. So tonight, folks, we bring somebody to the table here that has got a tremendously large and vast and deep knowledge of a lot of the things that you worry about for your high school kid for recruiting. Brian Hill, welcome to the show, man. Let's get going. How are you? And what do we want to start with? How about we start with this idea of what in the world is going on with this transfer portal stuff, man? How do you see that playing out right now?
Yeah, there is so many gray areas in what's happening, especially in the baseball world. But the transfer portal continues to tip things on its head. But it can be beneficial, and it could be a nightmare for some. But we're gonna look at both sides of it tonight and try to air it out.
One of the things we were talking about with one of our coaches recently when we did this with football, had a kind of a football taste to it. We were talking about how that the portal right now, the transfer portal, is kind of a high school athlete's worst enemy, but it could be a college player's best friend at some point in time, possibly. And,
Yeah.
and as we see that, let's talk a little bit about how how this transfer portal thing has kind of affected a little bit of the recruiting landscape right now for the high school athlete. What are you seeing? And let's talk about it from a Division I perspective, and let's talk about it from a D2 and even D3 NAI perspective in your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, from a college coach's perspective, if they're looking to fill a hole that they're losing, whether their players leaving because of whatever reason, or they're graduating, or whatever happened, why would you not want to go grab the player who already has college reps, college experience, understands the workload of being a 4-year student athlete, and putting them right in your program instead of having to bring one up from the high school ranks, which that's a really case-by-case scenario again, which program values what, but you can see that side of it and understand it from some too,
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I think we parents don't realize is, let's talk about Division I real quick, okay? And you talk to these guys every day and visit with them about players and that kind of stuff. But what people don't realize is, Coach, less than before the transfer portal got to what it was, before maybe some of these roster limits, we're going to talk about that in a minute too. Good gracious. before all that, only about 1.8% of the kids that played the game of baseball were going to play on a Division I roster somewhere anyway. And so that means and only about 6%, 7% of the kids that played high school ball were going to get to play somewhere in college at any level. And so you look at that, and really a lot of things we talk about when it comes to Division I are really it's really being, people want to think it applies to them when truthfully it doesn't necessarily apply to their child, because their child may not be a real Division I prospect. So let's talk a little bit about just a touch about what you see as the differentiation between a kid. Let's talk pitchers. Let's talk arms. Okay. What's the differentiation from you when you were recruiting a kid that you knew, okay, this kid's probably a D1 guy and he ends up signing Division I, and this kid is a D2, D3 NAIA guy? And share with the audience your expertise on that and what you saw over the years.
Yeah, I mean, from a talent perspective, you definitely looking at projectable traits. They got to have obviously some underlying velocity there. You can't just work from scratch. They need something to have that compares to what's already on their college roster. Some of it's more so movement and stuff and off speed and control versus just velocity, but they got to have something there that looks like a college player already, especially when you're talking about Division II. Not saying that Division I coaches don't develop pitchers, but there's definitely a higher standard to start off with, right? Whether that's 90 to 93 from the right side or 88 up from the left side or whatever that magic number may be for that program. But they're looking for underlying factors of that guy looks like a college player already.
I got you. Wow, folks! I hope y'all heard what he just said. That high school kid, and maybe those underlying factors. Maybe he just mentioned. Maybe Coach, you just mentioned. Maybe if it's a big righty, that he's 92 to 93, 95. If he's a left-handed dude, he's got to be 88 or above. But I'm gonna tell you all this: if you're listening, everything's got to have movement. It can't be flat. If it comes in there flat, anybody can hit 90 miles an hour flat. That's easy. I'm an old man. I can tell you right now, I can time that and hit it. Okay, Brian, I think I can. And so,
I mean, you're no slouch though, Coach.
Well, that's neither here nor there. But the bottom line is that we look at this, and parents don't realize when we start talking about the kid's got to already kind of look like a college player when he's 17, 18 years old. And we see this so many times, and you've seen this too. A kid's 6'1" or 2, he's a $150, he's undersized, he's got no lead in his britches at all, right? He's kind of slender. He's hitting 84, 85 miles an hour. And every mom and dad thinks that, okay, man, he's the best thing in our league. He's the best thing in our high school. He's the best thing in our state. But guys, he's 6'1" or 2, he weighs a $150, and he's not breaking 90. He doesn't physically look like the guy that's standing on the mound at that D2 school or that D1. He don't look like Paul Skeens, does he?
Yeah, I mean, not many did, but yeah.
Not many did. That joker's rolling over 100 in college, man. So we take the extremes, right? We talk about a guy like Skeens, which is phenomenal out of college, and obviously is off to a great start from a professional standpoint. But we look at our kids below that, and we say, wow, my kid's a good kid. He's going to be the exception, though. He's going to be the 160-pounder that gets picked up. I love what you said. You're looking for the kids that already have the look.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the physical, attributes go with it, and you have to have, obviously, you're a student athlete, student first. Academics got to come roll in there too, and there's higher standards at certain levels. But just underlying for pitching itself, like the size, yes, but the projectability, the high ceiling of the player, you can see that he is not tapped out, right?
I got you. So let's talk about projectability right quick. I know that's not necessarily on kind of the topic that we're going to hit, but that's something that over the years we've all had to come up to, especially those of us that scout baseball, football, volleyball. We have to look at what a kid is today, and we have to figure out, are they truly projectable? When you're looking at a kid, a high school kid, what are things you're looking for to determine projectability for that kid at the next level? Not necessarily Division I or Division II, but what things are you looking for projectability to see if he's going to project out?
Right. Well, actually, clean movement patterns go a long ways. If the kid naturally moves in the way that you view a college athlete to move, and you don't have to teach him that part of it. He's already a step ahead, and he can learn and adapt faster than others and pick things up that you do in your program. And obviously, yes, there's just, just a pure skill part where the kid already hits the ball hard regardless, or he throws, and he has good touch on off speed pitches already. Things like that, you can see, yes, I can work with this. He's going to hit those man muscles when he's 20 anyways. He already weighs 185 pounds. There's a lot to work with here, right? So let's, put him in the system and see what we can do with him.
Okay. And I think it's good for our listeners and people in the audience that's watching in tonight and will watch in the future to hear, look, we realize that a kid that's in high school still has development and still has projectability. But what coach just got through saying is that we've got to see that projectability. We have to see that natural athleticism. We're talking about movement. Those are natural athletic moves when a kid's, is it forced or is it something that he just has naturally? What about delivery? Does he have great movement because his arm slot's in the right place? And there's all kind of things. We look bat speed. Good gracious, everybody wants to get into metrics nowadays, coach. And I realize metrics matter to a degree, but at the end of the day, if you got a great ball exit speed, but you ain't got the eyes and hands to connect with the ball when a ball's being thrown 93 miles an hour. It doesn't matter what kind of ball exit speed you got.
Right.
How do you view? Let's take a step back a little bit. And how does the transfer portal, how has that impacted kind of the Division II level of baseball and what you've seen so far? We kind of know how it affects the Division I level, but how's the portal impacting the Division II guys, both in college, and then we'll talk about kids that may end up, trying to play Division II. So how's it impacting them? So that's kind of a twofold question. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. So, Division II is definitely benefited from the Division I drop downs, or sometimes those guys went Division I out of high school and didn't play. They got redshirted or whatever else happened. So even though they're coming with the D1 tag, they don't even have the college experience, but they had the daily routine of the college athlete. That is a 60-hour job, right? So they've already had that in them, and they had the underlying skills to get to that level first, and they just didn't either pan out the way it worked, or like each coach views things differently. So Division II has been able to take a hold of some of those guys that they wanted out of high school, but they went to Division I, so they came back down to Division II and they flourished, right? And I think it's a great thing because it gives all the players equal opportunity to get down there and play the game that they went to college to play.
Okay. I like that. But let's talk about the trickle-down effect of that, okay? Right? So if that kid was originally a D1 sign, okay, and they signed Division I, went somewhere, redshirted, didn't get the playing time, maybe had an injury, whatever the deal is, and then that we're going to use the word trickle-down. They trickle down in the portal and come to the Division II level. They shine. So then there's another trickle-down effect, right?
That's right.
If that kid came down, so what does that do to the high school kid trying to go up?
Yeah, they aren't as appealing when they can fill like the roster of the players that are going to take the majority of the playing time, right? And I'm sure the vast majority of Division IIs will still take that talent that they would normally develop, and hopefully he does develop. But kids don't want to sit there and wait that long anymore. They don't want to sit and wait till their junior year. They don't want to. They want what's now. And if that, trickle down effects affecting there, then they're moving down or moving on to different places. So it's a constant current going on right now.
No doubt. That's true. Let's take another step in some of the changes from a rules perspective that came down. And I remember in the first part of August of 24 when the NCAA handed these down, because there was a massive state of panic with a lot of Division I baseball guys and a lot of Division I softball guys and for their programs. And that is when they moved to the roster limitations at the Division I level. And there's, if I'm not mistaken, and you're the expert on this, we still don't have any levels of roster limitations at Division II level at this point in time, other than limitations on number of scholarships that the NCAA allows. But let's talk about what a typical Division I roster may have been, and then now what it is now as a result of the roster limitations and how that's impacted things.
Yeah, last year they would have 45 guys easily. Maybe X amount are on the travel roster, X amount get redshirted. Different things happen here and there, and they could take some chances. Their view of a chance on some players to see what they could do with it. And now that they're going to go down to 34 next year, that's just eliminated 10, 11 players that were on those teams to now be moved to either that lower level of Division I, depending on which conference that player was in, or to go completely down to D2 or NAIA or wherever they go. Right, so it's going to shake up things quite a bit.
Well, I'll never forget. I was having a conversation with a Division I coach, and the first thing he told me is that when that came down, he met with his NCAA compliance people at the Associate Athletic Director of NCAA compliance, and they told him what his changes needed to take place. And it was that very week that he had to pick the phone up and call 7 players that he had verbally offered and was committed to, and had to decommit and let them know he can't bring them. And then he also started having to evaluate his current roster and figure out how many of those kids he was going to have to break the news to that they couldn't stay.
Yeah, it's a mess.
It's a mess. And for parents and folks sitting there listening and watching us tonight, guys, there's nothing more. I'm going to tell you, there's nothing for a college coach that's built his roster and that has gone out on his word or her word. And I'm talking about several different sports here, but baseball is where we're focused tonight. But he goes out on his word and he tells the family, hey, I'm offering you a scholarship and a roster spot, and this is the amount of money I feel like we're going to be able to spend for you to get you here. We're going to get you some academic money. And then, hey, they're committed. They're waiting to get to signing day. And then all of a sudden, sometime in August, before we get to signing day in the late fall, he has to make that call. Guys, parents, let me tell y'all, those coaches took no joy in having to make that phone call. And the thing is that you as parents, we as parents that have got, we remember, you can remember that call. If you had to take that phone call, it was a heartbreaking phone call. It was heartbreaking for you. It was heartbreaking for your kid. It was heartbreaking for your spouse. It was heartbreaking for the coach that had to make it. And Brian, I think sometimes we as people don't understand, these coaches are just like they are. They got blood running through their veins. They got to breathe oxygen. They got feelings. They got emotions. And all of a sudden they're having to make calls that they know are going to heartbreak kids. And I'm sure at some point you've had to make a call or two to tell a kid that something's changed and it was beyond your control. That's no fun.
No, it's not. And I know from experience of talking to these guys that it was not a good time. And even the fact of they're going to have players that have been in their program for 2 years, they're going to get that conversation they had over Christmas break. Hey, it's not going to be, you're not really in the picture, and we're going to help you out the best we can, but this is what we have to do. But they don't want to do it, right? So I mean, it was not fun for anybody.
No, it was not. And so I want everybody to have some clarity on this too. Okay, what Coach just went through was, you take a Division I program that may have carried 45 to 50 guys on a roster. Okay, a lot of arms. All right, a lot of arms in there for depth. And now all of a sudden it's 34. Now understand that the NCAA, the rule that came down, everybody got all fired up and excited because the rule was, well, you can put all 34 guys on a full ride. And so the media and everybody on social media, right when this all came out, was, this is a great thing for college athletics. Like, all the kids are going to get scholarships, blah, 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 blah. Well, first of all, the conferences have got to opt in to the lawsuit thing and the revenue sharing and all that kind of stuff, number one. And not every conference is opting in. So let's go ahead and get that out there. Just because you're Division I, Brian, dozens and dozens of coaches that ain't opting in to the whole funding, because the school can't afford to fund 34 baseball scholarship full rides at $40,000 a year for the cost of education. It's just the money's not there, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's establish that. Even at Division I, the money's not there. So the misinformation gets all out there, Brian, and everybody gets all excited about this misinformation. And then all of a sudden the reality of the real juice, right? The real juice starts setting in. And then you realize, well, doggone. So now they got to cut from 45 to 50 down to 34. And, okay, if that's not bad enough, and they're not fully funding 34 full scholarships, they don't have any more money than they had before. They just got to split it up amongst less kids and they got less roster. They just cut 11 roster spots completely off the top. You tell me, moms and dads and parents that are listening, how in the world does that benefit your child?
Yeah. It was us baseball coaches have been, pretty upset about the amount of scholarship for quite some time. That's been on the board of things to talk about for all these national meetings. And yes, everybody went up, for Division One from 11.7, but barely any are going to go fully 34. I mean, that's just
It's going to come down to money conferences, right? And then they got to vote it as a conference.
right.
And so that's the piece, folks, as we talk about this, that these coaches are they're really in a pickle, and it's not helping the recruiting situation. And look, we're not here tonight, Coach, we're not here tonight to be gloom and doom.
No,
We're
no,
not. But we are here to do what?
Inform.
To inform and let people know the reality of what this situation looks like as a whole. And look, guys, I know we've got a baseball flavor tonight to this with Coach Hill and his vast experience and expertise in college baseball recruiting and what he's done as a head coach and the success he's had over the years. And that's the flavor. But the truth is, what we're talking about tonight has impacted every single collegiate sport that gets scholarship money from an NCAA sanctioned opportunity. Everybody's impacted, and nobody's really singing great off the sheets of music or how beautiful it is. It's tough. Hey, I do want to have one more question before we kind of get into some other things. But
Yeah.
this latest crazy lawsuit that came out of that Davia kid from Vanderbilt, the JUCO guy that came to Vanderbilt. Now he's got an extra. They're trying to get. How does that play? And what we're talking about, folks, is everybody went crazy when a circuit court judge in Nashville, Tennessee, decided that he was going to rule that if you played junior college athletics, you got another year or two of eligibility or whatever the deal was. Brian, I don't remember exactly what that was, but how do we see that playing out now with and understand it hadn't been completely. It's confusing.
Very much.
See it?
Yes, it is. And coaches are trying to figure out if their player is, one who's going to get it and what they're going to do with it. And if they even want that player back for that year that they're awarded and what they're going to do with that roster. It's almost like a whole nother COVID year just blew up out of nowhere. It's where everybody's kind of wondering what's what and should I do this or should I do that? Just so much gray area happened from it. But that is only for Division One, from what I've figured out, as well as, you also have to have X requirements to get it, progress towards degree, this and that's got to go with. It's just not a blanket statement. So there's a lot that goes into that whole. Yeah.
And another thing on that too, it's my understanding that not only does it apply to a young person that's coming from a junior college that had a year that's got, this year finished up, but it also could apply to non-NCAA institutions, which would be inclusive of NAIA schools.
Correct.
Is that your understanding as well?
Yes, and that's a big thing for baseball. Baseball NAIA is very, very big, and there's a lot of players who, transfer in from NAIAs to Division Ones or twos, and constantly. So there could be a grab there for some people, and then really be obsolete for others. But
let me ask you this question. This is on a side note. There are some really, really good NAIA baseball programs in the United States. Are there not?
Ain't no doubt about it, Coach. I got some good friends at NAIA. The guys at Tennessee Wesleyan, Missouri Baptist, Texas Wesleyan, they're no joke, man. They're gonna have some guys every single year, and Southeast Fire down there in Florida. There's some really big time baseball schools.
And you look at them, and then you go and you watch them play some of these mid-major Division Ones, and man, they beat the brakes off of them.
Yeah,
they got the right guy with the right arm on the bump. They got the dude behind the plate he's got all the gun. They got the dude at shortstop and center field that are unbelievable athletes that you can make plays, and they got 4 or 5 guys with sticks that are big as lumberjack trees, and they can swing them. And those guys are great players. And that's another thing let's talk about real quick. People get so consumed with D1-itis that they don't realize, in your years of coaching, talk to me about the greatness that you saw at the different levels of play, NAIA, D3, D2, even junior college.
That's one of the best parts about, collegiate summer ball is, I got players playing for us from all over the country and in all levels. I've had, you know, a little bit over 100 guys drafted in the past 10 years, and I'd say only about 35% have been Division I players. And it's, Division II NAIA guys, handful of D3 guys getting drafted each year that are really, really, really good. And then obviously you got junior college players that have been doing that for forever. It's kind of what they've hung their hat on for a while. So,
Yeah.
baseball talent spread out, I think, a lot more than other sports. But NAI, they can offer scholarship money. They can do all sorts of things that NCAA can do, but they have their own twist to it. So
They do. They have an unbelievable ability to put together athletic money packages along with academic leadership money packages. And so I think it's crazy for any family, any athlete, when they're trying. I don't think people need to pigeonhole their mind into D1, D2. I think they need to understand that going to play at the next level, less than 6% of the kids are going to get a chance to do it anyway at any level. Be looking for the best fit for your athlete. Be looking for a place where you can go be a freshman All-American and not be the freshman bench rider. I
yes,
mean,
go where you can.
you would agree with that, right?
Absolutely. Go where you can play. The only way to get better at playing the game is to play the game, not just be on a team. So go play, go where you can play. And this is where the portal can come in. If you over exceed expectations, then go get in the portal and see what happens. Right. Or if you go somewhere that's over your head, get in the portal and get where you can go play. That's another part that I think is a good benefit from the portal. But at the same time, playing baseball is your goal. Go find somewhere you can play.
No doubt. We covered a lot right there about how that the new recruiting landscape has affected the high school kid. And it really has affected so many different things: the portal, roster limitations, scholarship money, the JUCO stuff. All that stuff has had an impact on the current recruiting landscape for the high school kid. But let's talk about how maybe it's impacted. Used to I think this was always funny, Coach. This was, and you've probably heard this too. I had a parent one time tell me, "Well, we're not going to go to this school. We're just going to walk on at this school." And I thought, "Oh, you're just going to show up and walk on, huh?"
Right.
So you don't understand that there was some recruiting that went on before or other, and you get to a walk on. It's like, "Hey, son, we like you. We recruited during the season, but we ain't got no money, and so we're gonna. If you want to walk on, we have a roster spot." Let's get some clarification on how walk-ons kind of work, right? And also let's talk about how even we start talking about walk-on, we talk about scout team stuff and JV rosters because there are some schools that have JV rosters. Let's talk a little bit about all that stuff, Coach.
Yeah, I mean, roster spots are, an even bigger deal than they were now. They're going to have roster cuts in Division I. But even for Division II down, if you fit into that, program's culture, and they ask you to be a part of the program, but they don't have any scholarship money for you, and it's the right fit for you, then you should definitely take that offer. That is a spot to come on the team. The actual idea of going to an open tryout while you're a student at that campus and getting picked on that team, I think that's way, way gone. I don't think that happens anymore, right? So if but again, the roster spot guys, the walk-on guys, they really have to earn their keep. I've had a number of walk-on players come onto my programs and take spots from guys that were on, money. Makes us coaches scratch our heads a little bit, but hey, we're going to play the best player, right? But at the same time, I think it's a fit by fit situation for the athlete if they're going to walk on somewhere, or, be a non-roster guy. So
That's a tough deal, right?
it is.
And with the limitations of Division I level, now that come in, now all of a sudden it really makes those guys have to really figure out and do a better job of preparing for scout team preparation and situation play because they're not going to have that large roster that they would have had before to do inter squad play and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's a lot to it.
There is. And, when it comes to guys that you would say like a practice squad or whatever, if they came in as a non-qualifier at a high school, so they could not play in, any type of cannibal athletic related activity. So they call that CARA, NCAA, right? Then they would be redshirted and they would be able to practice but not play. X amount of guys can do that. That was their only spot to get on, and they do it. But now we do have a lot of developmental teams that are, coming around, especially in the Southeast. It's really heavy Division II, III NAIA teams are having these developmental teams. Even some junior college programs are having them now, and that is, yes, it's enrollment driven, but at the same time, it's an opportunity, is what it is, right? And if this is the opportunity that you get, and this is what you want to do, then take the opportunity.
I want to make sure our audience knows what you mean when you say developmental rosters.
Yeah.
What he's referring to, folks, is sometimes you may hear of a school, maybe it's an NAI school or Division III, and they'll talk about that they're going to bring a kid in that's going to be on their roster, but then they'll talk about they're going to bring a kid in, they're going to be a JV player, and that maybe that idea of JV and what Coach was talking about are basically the same. Their development. They may have some leadership or academic money invested in them or something like that, but very rarely will they have athletic money tied to that as well. Now, I realize it's a case by case thing, Coach, but for the most part,
it's very slim.
Yeah, it's very slim. I think that's one of the things that some people really struggle with understanding is, guys. I don't know whether y'all realize this, but as an audience, when somebody says to you that my kid just got a full ride to LSU to play baseball, we all, as guys that's been doing this forever, we all smirk and grin at that because we know that the likelihood of the current situation, because of roster limitations and the fact that they may not be funding all 34 roster spots, we realize that that's probably not the case. It was probably a case of a good bit of athletic money tied with a good bit of academic money. The kid was a smart kid, good ACT, SAT score, and all of his education got paid for that way. Now, we do realize there were some guys, right? I mean, there were some guys, Dylan Cruz, one of our NSR guys, and guys like Skeens, probably by the time they're a senior, they're on all the money, even before the changes in roster and changes in limitations. You would agree with that, right? That those guys, coaches bump and bump and bump, and eventually that one guy's getting 100% of the money.
Yeah. Those are 1% talents.
Oh, those are special kids. I mean, they're not even 1%ers, man. They're half percenters.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
That's how special those guys are. So is it safe to say that in your opinion, after you dealing with this for so many years and you communicating almost every day with coaches at every level, it's pretty safe to say that really it's almost the transfer portal is the first place that every coach is going to look to fill an immediate roster need. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, and for right then and there, because their roster can change at the drop of a hat.
Okay.
Any disgruntled player can get in the portal right away. And if that happens and they need to go find someone, then they're going to find someone that's at equal or almost equal skill level. It's really hard to do unless you already had some, junior college player lined up that you've been talking to, because the process is a process. It takes time, right? So the only way to get one right away is the portal. So yes, for a quick look, you're going to have to go there first.
Or a high school kid that is already in that 1%er type mentality anyway, that physically already looks like a player, already plays like a college player. He just happens to be an 18-year-old guy.
Right. And they're already locked up probably though. They already got,
that guy's already been found. Okay.
For sure.
So let's change direction just a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about APR and graduation rates and all that kind of stuff for the longest time really was a big deal for colleges because it impacted their funding of their scholarships. How do you see that playing out right now with the kind of the transition that we're seeing with the portal and JUCO? How does that is it still as important as it once was, or is it changing, or what are you seeing in that?
I don't think it's going to be as important as it was because the fundings are going up. Just because besides Division I, Division II, III, and down, rosters are going to go up because there's going to be more players there. So, obviously they want the best student athlete that they can get. So it's important to have strong, graduation rates per program and so on and so forth. But I don't think that's going to be, the big highlight anymore.
I got you. Okay. And I tend to agree with that. I think that that's going to be one of those things that's just not as weighed in on as because, look, there's kids leaving rosters before graduation. There's all this movement in the portal. There's this movement between junior college going in. Now, I want to say something here just because you and I know this. I don't know that everybody else knows this. I've had parents tell me that baseball kids, well, we're not going to worry about going to XYZ 4 year. We're just going to go play junior college ball. As if there's some kind of step down. If I can't play here, I can definitely play at junior college.
Right.
What have you seen in the quality of play? And I mean, look, I'm talking about some stuff. You see some stuff in the Carolinas, boy, and the junior college stuff, and down in the South. Okay, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. What do you see as the level of play with some of these JUCOs?
I mean, from just the raw talent that they're going to get from the high school players that are going there because of whatever reason, right? And then the vast amount of drop down Division I players who are still in that first or second year that can still go play junior college baseball. Just going to the local community college to go play baseball, it's just not happening anymore, right? They're out recruiting, they're out and I mean heavily getting transfers and doing what they do. Plus, they also develop players at a high rate. So yeah, it's you just don't go play at the local community college anymore.
No, and look, I realize that maybe 20 years ago that was the mentality, right? I mean, well, but even now, what people may not realize is a lot of baseball guys that are really super amazing that were the potential large Division I guys are going junior college just because it may be a little simpler to transition into the draft or into free agency at some point from a junior college perspective. Am I understanding that right too in the culture we're in today?
If you're a high, like a high profile prospect and whatever, allotment of money came your way in that round and you passed it in the draft, then yes, if you're going to bet on yourself to be drafted next year higher and not go to school for 3 years and junior college is the way to go. That is your best bet, no doubt about it.
Okay, because it's my understanding that if you go play at the 4 year level, NCAA, you're hung in there for what, 3 years before you can declare out?
Junior year or you got to be 21. So yeah.
Okay. And I didn't have clarity on the age piece of it. I didn't know what. Okay, fair enough. That's good information. But so many of our people don't really realize what those things look like for these kids. So here's another question. I mean, what do we have to see? What do you have to see in a high school athlete that would push them ahead as a college coach? What do you have to see in a high school athlete that's going to push them ahead of a JUCO guy or a transfer guy?
I mean, honestly, it's going to have to be a solid mix of physical and mental, along with social skills that fit in with what you're trying to do at your program, right? You know where your program's at in its stage, whether it's hey, we got a good thing rolling here, we got great development happening, or if it's I need guys to impact me right now, still at the high school level, but being as much of a grown man as possible is what they want. Right?
Wow.
They want men. And if we have to hold your hand just to go to class and turn in a paper, then I don't see you, developing on my baseball field and helping us win. Right. So,
So grades matter, huh?
what do you know? Student athlete.
Boys, you can't be dumb as a box of rocks anymore and play the game. Okay. I mean, that's kind of tough, man. I mean, it's just kind of tough. This kind of leads us to this question too, really. We talk about what a kid's got. You've said it many times now. You've said it at least 3 times, and you refer back to the physical, what a kid looks like physically coming out of high school. So how do you see, and do you stress the importance of strength and conditioning along with proper nutrition and that kind? What do you see that aspect of it for us being able to advise high school kids at this point in time?
Absolutely. The moment they get on that college campus, they're going to be in the weight room with their strength coach. And if you don't know your way around that, or you are shy to do more in there to get better on the field, one, you're going to just, handicap yourself, but also you're going to be extremely sore. Try to go to that first week's practice. If you've never been under that squat rack, you are going to be set behind. They want guys to be as up snuff as possible so you can fit in with what they got going on. Yes, they're going to help you develop. They're going to treat you the proper way to lift the weights. And they understand that they're not all college baseball players in high school, but the kid who's taking care of his body and taking care of what he's putting in it and therefore putting out of it, then that's the type of player I want in my program, because they're going to be doing that already when we get here, right? Unless you are just blessed with 95 at like a $1.60 noodle and you just throw that hard anyways, then they're going to want an actual physical person.
Imagine what that kid looks like if he's a buck 60 touching 95.
It looks like Pedro Martinez is what he looks like.
Yeah, and what does he look like though when he's about a buck 90,
Right.
30 pounds heavier with actual some explosive hips and being able to unload them and some flexibility and some power and because he was in a great nutrition program in high school, he beefed up a little bit his junior to senior year and actually put on really good weight. What does a velocity look like for that kid that puts on 30 pounds and has and looks like a, I mean, it could be 4 or 5 miles an hour just because he put on 25 or 30 pounds of muscle mass.
Absolutely. And it's not even just that the actual performance is that much better, but the longevity is going to be better. It's going to be healthy. A healthy baseball player is the best baseball player. If you're great and all you do is get hurt, then you're just that guy that kept getting hurt. But if you want to continually play, you got to be healthy. And that goes along with the strength and, all that stuff that goes with it.
Man, how many times, coach, in your career have you heard guys that went on to, they finish, they get to be young men, they're in their 20s, mid to late 20s, and they say, man, I was throwing 93 and then I blew my elbow out. I was throwing so and so and I tore my knee up.
Right.
And there's so many times, folks, the reason that happened is because they were not physically developed the way they need to be when their muscle mass and or they were undersized and didn't reach the size that would actually support healthy the type of play and the type of physical punishment that we put on our body as athletes to play the game. And that's the one thing I kind of want to end on maybe tonight, coach, is everybody, the people don't understand the physical stress that the body goes through to be a collegiate athlete. This is not sitting around on the couch eating tater chips and drinking sodas, man. This is a different story. And so let's talk about a little bit of that real quick about the stresses. Well, in fact, there's something else I want to talk about too. You mentioned earlier that it's like a kid having a Division I kid. He's got like a 60-hour-a-week job. Folks, what coach is referring to when he said that is about 30 to 40 hours of the week needs to be dedicated to the classroom, studying, study hall, preparing for tests and labs and that kind of stuff. And then the NCAA allows at the Division I level, if I'm not mistaken, unless it's changed, 20 hours of practice meetings and that type of stuff. Outside of any volunteer work, we'll put that out there on top of it. Is that still in play there, Coach?
Yes, absolutely. And, yes, all that stuff that goes with the academics, plus you need to do your own. If you're only getting the reps at practice, you're behind, right? So you got to get the other work in. And then you got to still be a kid, man. You're 18 to 22 years old. You got to have some sort of social life to balance everything out, right? Plus, you still got to sleep. So it is a long day. And again, if you're not ready for that, then you're going to find out real quick.
Because as we're talking about the stresses, let's talk about the stresses our body, right? We're not getting rest. Okay, well, we got to have rest or our body doesn't repair itself the way it needs to. We got to physically be in the right physical state, or if we're not, the body starts picking itself apart with your weaknesses, and then that causes injury. And then you said something earlier too that really you got to have the mental emotional strength to deal with the different time management stresses and look, the pressure that you put on yourself to perform and the pressure that it takes to play the game. And the truth of the matter is, here's what I'm going to say to everybody here. You got to process and compartmentalize pressure in order to play in college. And if you can't, it's going to be a tough road for you because the game itself is a lot of pressure involved in it. It's not bad pressure if you can handle it, stress it, apply it the right ways, distribute it out in the right way. But that's the thing, coach, that most people don't realize is there's so much going on academically, athletically, mentally, emotionally. You got to have a social life. You got to still get rest. You got to get workouts in. You got to go to class. You got to make good grades. There's balance in this.
There is. And if you want to succeed and flourish in college, then you need to find that program that fits you in that academic, athletic, and social threshold that is good for you individually. Whether you got an offer from a great school to go play and you love playing, but then the school's either too hard or not hard enough, and you are struggling there, and the social aspect's not working out, then now all of a sudden the baseballs are going to start weighing on you a little bit. You need to have that good mix, and kids sometimes don't find the right school because they're not thoroughly going through the process correctly.
Yeah. Well, look, Coach, we've been rolling about 45 minutes, and I think we have covered a ton of information tonight. It always amazes me of our talking points. We kind of have an idea of them, and then we start taking the different tangents that get us so deep into different things that people really need to know and they hear. Ladies and gentlemen, we really do appreciate you joining us tonight and being a part of this live feed that we do in this podcast, for lack of a better term. And Coach Hill, I want to say a couple things about you so that the audience knows. You get someone like Coach Brian Hill that's been doing this for 15 years as a collegiate coach. He's coached hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of young men over the years, and it's probably reaches into thousands now by the time you put in the summer league baseball stuff that you do for the collegiate summer league. So when he talks tonight, he's not talking from a place of theory that he's, kind of trying to figure out. This man's talking from a place of reality and what he has seen as it's developed over the last several years, and especially the way it's impacted himself as a coach the last few years as the portal and those kind of things. It is also great for the audience to know Coach Hill is also part of the National Scouting Report family, one of our baseball scouts, and does a great job handling and assisting young people throughout the country find their dream to play in college to come true for baseball. But at the end of the day, here's what he said. You got to be good enough to play. And you got to get evaluated, and you got to understand where your skill set is. And if you haven't been evaluated and you're just running around going to these, I don't know, camps and perfect game this and PBR that, and you truly hadn't been evaluated by somebody that actually does it for a living every day, it may be time for you to get evaluated. Coach, thank you so much for taking your time tonight to just join our audience and to join me for a few minutes of just talking baseball recruiting and how it impacts young people. But any last words you want to share with everybody, and then we'll close this thing up.
Oh man, it's been great. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, talking baseball is what's supposed to happen right now. Hot stove thing is going around, different banquets, because we're getting cranked up, man. Junior college starts next week, Division II after that, and then it's on.
Man,
So
it's going to be here. Well, hey, we'll be watching it on ESPN every week somewhere, and we'll be out at ball fields all over the country watching kids play.
absolutely.
Well, listen, Coach Brian Hill, thank you again for joining us. Everybody that's out there watching us, thank you for being a part of the audience tonight. And of course, this will be on Facebook. This will be on some different platforms on YouTube, and it'll be accessible to you. If you weren't here tonight, obviously you're not going to hear me say this, but you can find us anytime and you can go watch it at your convenience. Everybody have a great night. Thanks again. Take care, and everybody have a great week.